What do active fund managers really think about what they do for a living? Professor Crawford Spence from King's College London interviewed 28 senior fund managers in Australia and New Zealand about their work and active management in particular. What struck him wasn't just what they said, it was how they said it. The language they used sounded less like business strategy and more like religious faith.
It starts off gently, and as you push them on it, it starts to become a little bit more dramatic as they speak. So they may talk about equilibriums or tipping points or the cyclical nature of investing, and they'll say, yes, we concede that index/passive investing has really gone on the rise in recent times, but that's not a secular or structural phenomenon. It's a cyclical thing, and we're going to see active fund management is going to have um, it's going to have its day back again in the sun at some point in the future, which itself is a sort of hopeful discourse. There's no sense that that is the case if you look at the history of fund management. I mean, the asset flows and market share has all been moving in one direction for sort of the last 20 years.
Hope, in other words, dressed up as strategy. But the track record of active fund management tells us something quite different. Most active funds underperform the market over any meaningful time period. But it's not just the language that's revealing. When Professor Spence looked at what many of these funds are actually doing with your money, he discovered widespread closet indexing, funds that market themselves as active but are quietly running portfolios that partly track the index.
If you look underneath the bonnet of what they're doing, you see actually a significant percentage of their assets or their clients' assets, to be more precise, are allocated to passive strategies. That could be 30%, it could be 50%, it could be 60%. It really ranges quite a bit. So that's what closet indexing would be. One interviewee has a lovely phrase for it. He called it dirty beta. So beta, of course, is referring to index strategies, whereas alpha is supposed to be outperforming the index. So dirty beta is something you shouldn't be pursuing. You should be pursuing alpha.
So you're paying active management fees, but a sizable chunk of your portfolio is passively managed. That means you could be paying a premium for something you can get for a fraction of the cost. And it raises an obvious question. If institutional clients like pension funds have wised up to all this and moved their money elsewhere, who's left to pay the bills? The answer, according to the King's College research, is ordinary retail investors, people like you and me. And the industry has a telling phrase for the money we represent.
Once these retail investors are on board, they tend not to be so fee conscious. They tend to be viewed as sticky money, and they tend to be a lot more naive as well, because there's a lot of people out there that are not so well informed about how to manage their own financial situation. They tend to just stick with the funds they've chosen for quite a significant amount of time, and they're paying higher margins. This phrase "sticky money" is not one that's just used by one person. It's a phrase that's very widespread. And one of the fund managers said, retail money is often thought to be very sticky money, and you have to underperform for a very long time before that money disappears.
Sticky money, valued not because you're a good client, but because you're unlikely to question the fees, compare alternatives, or walk away when performance disappoints. So what's the takeaway from Professor Spence's research?
Well, I think there's more than just a residue of investor naivety out there. And I think in particular, what this current study does is draw attention towards the need for retail investors to be better informed, because that is the sort of new frontier, it would seem for active fund management to try and keep going. You have more savvy investors that have cottoned on to the poor value that active fund management tends to provide over time. So, what they're doing is they're pivoting towards a segment of the population that is, less proactive in asking difficult questions and less in a position to negotiate, more reasonable fee commissions for managing their portfolios.
So The less you know, the more attractive you are to the active fund management industry. That's worth sitting with for a moment. The good news is it's not complicated to fix. Index funds, for example, are widely available, easy to understand, and backed by decades of evidence. And a good financial planner can help you build a portfolio around them, one that's designed to serve your interests, not someone else's business model.